Hey everybody, hope this finds you doing well and having a great start to your week. Let's go ahead and just jump right into it. It was quite a volatile week over the past week. We can see that Bitcoin is currently trading just over 70,600 and it's down about 7.83% over the last 7 days. We'll go a little bit further into what happened over the past week and Bitcoin price action in a moment. Ethereum down 8% back above 2,000 when it did dip below 1,800 over the past week. It's now at $2,083. We have XRP trading at $1.44. It was down over 9% over the past week. We have Solana down about 13.61%, currently trading at around $87. So it did lose $100 and continue to fall. So we'll see what happens with Solana over the next several weeks. Then we have Dogecoin, the largest meme coin of them all, also dipped below 10 cents, down over 6.78% over the past week. And then we have Bitcoin Cash still overtaking Cardano in the top 10. So let's go ahead and look a little bit closer at what happened with Bitcoin over the past few days. So if we look at the monthly chart, it's not looking pretty at all. As you can see, Bitcoin currently, if the month were to end today, Bitcoin would have 5 consecutive months of negative returns, and that hasn't happened since 2018 and going into the beginning of 2019 when we were in a bear market. So we're looking to see what Bitcoin is going to do by the end of this month of February, but right now the trend is not looking good in terms of Bitcoin and the price action going down lower. Obviously, one of the things that people need to consider, particularly when it comes to Bitcoin, and especially since the introduction of IBIT, there's more and more options and leverage that's happening. So when we saw what happened in October at the 1010 event, when it was the largest crypto deleveraging ever, when it was over $19 billion that was liquidated. Now we're seeing that we had over this past week over 2 billion liquidated. So we can definitely see a lot more volatile action, particularly now that we have even more leverage. And that's why we say make sure you're very careful and understand what you're investing in, particularly when you're looking to use leverage and margin. You have to be extremely careful, because if Bitcoin has a major price drop, you definitely could get margin called, and that's how the price can continue to cascade and go down lower. So we're going to continue to obviously keep an eye on what happens with Bitcoin and the price action over the next several weeks and going towards the end of this month to see if we have a streak of 5 consecutive negative months. It's definitely a possibility. It's in the cards. If we look a little bit closer at the daily action, it doesn't look any better. If you can see, it is a bad looking chart when it comes to Bitcoin price. So there's definitely a possibility that Bitcoin could continue to go down. And if we look at it here, we got to about just around $60,000 in price action last week. And so now we're looking to see if we could bounce back and get back to this $80,000 range. We're obviously in the $70,000 range right now. Could it have a little bit of a relief rally? Definitely a possibility, but a lot of speculators and on-chain analysts believe that definitely there's a possibility that Bitcoin could continue its trend downward, because a lot of people have had arguments about whether we're in the typical 4-year cycle or not. That's why we are long-term holders. We look at what long-term meaning 5, 6, 7 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. But we believe that if you hold Bitcoin for at least 8 years, if you hold it through a couple of cycles, then most likely you're going to be seeing a higher price than when you got in. So depending on if you're dollar cost averaging or if you get in during the bear market, then you want to make sure that you have an opportunity to see what's happening with Bitcoin. Try to get in when you can, but at the end of the day, we're looking at it like Manhattan right now. Manhattan real estate back in the early 1900s. If you held on, you did extremely well over the next 30, 40, 50 years. So now we're looking to see what's going to happen with Bitcoin over the long run. Obviously, time will tell, but we'll definitely obviously keep you posted here at Networkchain. Another reason why we see a lot of crazy price action and volatility when it comes to Bitcoin is the South Korean crypto exchange accidentally gave away $43 billion in Bitcoin. So once again, another thing that is extremely important when it comes to Bitcoin is having an understanding of how your Bitcoin is stored and the Bitcoin security, whether you have it on an exchange. If you do, what type of exchange do you have it on? There's always a possibility that when you have it on a centralized platform, you're basically putting your Bitcoin in their hands. And so when it comes to this South Korean crypto exchange, Bithumb, they accidentally gave away 2,000 Bitcoin instead of 2,000 won. So initially they were airdropping users 2,000 won, which was about $1.37, and they ended up reportedly sending 2,000 Bitcoin apiece to airdrop these people that they, airdropped these coins to. So this also caused crazy price action, particularly on their platform. So we're seeing that a lot of craziness is happening out there when it comes to Bitcoin. So you want to make sure that you have a general understanding. It takes some time to fully understand the landscape when it comes to crypto and when it comes to Bitcoin. But definitely understand that now that we have more institutional investors coming into the space, that obviously that's an opportunity for more money and more funds to flood into the asset. But then also, as I mentioned earlier, there's a possibility that you have, liquidations and more volatility due to the opportunities for more leveraging, particularly since the IBIT ETF and the other Bitcoin ETFs that were introduced to the traditional markets in January of 2024. Another thing that we always talk about is you want to make sure you have an understanding of the macro environment. So another thing that could potentially help Bitcoin and other risk on assets is if we see that the monetary policy continues to ease, and in easing, that would indicate that the interest rates would be starting to go down, and it has, but it has paused. And we're seeing that the US job losses, particularly in January of 2026, reached a 17-year height. So when we look at the US job losses in January, US planned layoffs are more than tripled in January to their highest level since 2009, signaling a sharp cooling in the jobs market despite still strong official payroll data. So sometimes we have to take it with a grain of salt, the different avenues that we get our information from. And sometimes also things can be delayed, but the job market is not looking great right now, at least from some of the data that we're receiving from various outlets. Obviously, we'll continue to keep an eye on that as well. But if we start to see a weakening labor market, then that could potentially be a signal for the Federal Reserve to continue to drop the interest rate. So currently the interest rate is around 3.5 to 3.75, somewhere around there. And so it's been paused for several months now. So we'll see if that changes. Also, there's going to be a change in the Federal Reserve chairman. So that could be a big indication of what could happen next. So there's still a lot of macro news that could affect the price of Bitcoin. So obviously you want to make sure that you stay tuned to what's going on, just generally speaking, when it comes to the economic landscape, to have an understanding of what Bitcoin could do down the line. Of course, we'll keep you posted. We really appreciate you watching. Hope you had a great weekend and a good start to your week. And make sure to check us out on X as well as on Instagram. We look forward to linking up with you soon on the Networkchain. Take care. Bye-bye.